For many of us, spirituality is just the quest to find essence or true meaning and to really just connect with a higher consciousness.
Welcome to the Bring Me to Life podcast.
Connecting with your spirituality is very important in this life. By becoming mindful of all of that, you can realize where you are and if that is leading you to where you want to go.
Listen to the little simple things, because it's those little simple things that are going to shift you vibrationally in such a way that will prepare you to become very intuitively minded and ready to step forward on the next part of your path.
I hope you can feel the love that's inside you, it's inside me, that connects us.
Three, two, one. Boom. How are you today, Nick?
Greetings. I'm doing well today. Thank you for having me once again. It's a pleasure. Greetings all to the listeners and viewers, wherever the time and space that you are joining us today.
Definitely. Last week we had talked about, it was a lot of nature. It was a nature-themed episode, and we had our videos that we made, and we talked about nature, and it was really awesome. And this week we're gonna be talking about traveling to new places.
Yeah, last week was a blast. I really had a great time putting my stuff in there and joining with y'all. And traveling is so huge because it really takes us out of our comfort zones.
Definitely. I think getting out of your comfort zone is one of the best ways to grow, because if you're comfortable with something, or if you're automatically good at it and you try to get better, it's a little bit harder. But when you know you're not good at something or you're uncomfortable with it, then any time you spent with it is, I think, progress towards growing.
Oh yeah, totally. Because as soon as we're there and there's that thing that we're not so good at, or it's brand new, it's almost like we are immediately met with ourself. And for those of us listening to this here and participating in this, we generally want to step into that stuff and learn and grow. So traveling is such a wonderful way to reveal more of yourself and just jump on into these higher level technologies of learning ourselves and opening and healing.
Mm-hmm. And that's one reason why people should be excited about traveling to a new place. In my experience, it also opens up your mind and your heart, and I think that's one of the biggest things that I learned when I traveled the country, and every day it was a new place.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't traveled too much, but every time this topic gets brought up by anyone who has, it's always about, wow, everything's so different over there, wherever it is, and the culture. I usually find myself in stories where everyone was so receptive and just like open community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one thing that I think we should talk about is you don't have to go very far to travel to a new place. I know a lot of people who spend most of their time inside, or just going back and forth to the same places that they go every day. And I don't think it's that hard to find a new place to go to, even if it's in the same city that you're in right now, or just 20, 30 minutes away. So I don't want to limit people from because I know some people can't travel, they don't have the means to, but even going for a walk, you could go to a new area, and you begin to see things that you don't normally see. I think it's just really healthy to do something different, every once in a while at least.
Yeah, I really like where you're taking this. I feel that traveling, a simple meaning of traveling could be something along the lines of, just like what you said, going somewhere new, or Like, let's say you go to that grocery store that we're so blessed to have 10 or 15 minutes away, or even 5 minutes away for some of us, and maybe we go a little bit further to a different grocery store. Or if we have a gym membership, instead of going to this one that we normally go to that other one that's a little further away. You got different workers there, there's a different community there, and even walking to a different area of your neighborhood. You could run into someone outside, you start up a conversation. We don't really know where it would go because we're in a whole brand new area, and a traveling in that way can be just as impactful as traveling way out there to wherever. And it does something to the brain and the personality and our identity being in an environment that's new, or you could even say strange, because sometimes things seem strange when we don't really know where we're going, or it's not normal to us and we're out of our comfort zone. And in that strange zone, in that new area, wherever you go, there you are. So we could even relate this to when we feel differently about our own self, or when we're going through strange times in our life. Wherever you go, there you are. And as we all are viewing this now, we've survived many things. We have went into strange places. We have went into new places, physically or internally. And there's always gems there. There's always new things to see, learn, and to receive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like when we go to new places, new grocery stores, and meeting new people, you get neurons in your brain firing that don't normally fire, so your mind expands because of traveling or finding new things.
Yeah, exactly. With the moving our location and traveling to new areas, even if it's local, our brain and our personality is called up to bat, basically, and being like, wherever you go, there you are. So here in this new place, our brain is expanding. Our brain is even traveling to new places, and these neurons and the different communications our brain shares, it's growing, it's evolving, it's adapting. And us as humans, we can look and see how our creature has adapted over so much time. And through this adaptation, as we travel into these new areas, the neurons and the brains, they're just, all I can see in my mind right now is just like a party.
They're having a party in your
popping
brain.
off, everything's going, and it's not necessarily good or bad, because some people it could bring some stress and anxiety. Some people it could bring like bliss and awe, or any sliding scale in between. And I feel that's kind of like the brain doing a spring cleaning of that area. It's like pushing out all the debris. So even if we're getting stressed or anxious in a new place, it doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. And just because we're getting really excited in a new place, it may not even mean that it's good, because sometimes, we can be irresponsible and stuff and whatnot, but the brain is just like, party time, let's go.
Yeah. I do like to party, to be honest. But it did take me a while to want to travel to new places. It took me a while to get out of my comfort zone. But when I finally did, and I was able to, move past the stress and anxiety of not knowing anybody around me, I was able to really just, beyond opening my mind, my heart just like expanded and increased so much. And, it's like an amazing experience to feel your heart expanding.
Could you talk a little more about the process from like your state of mind before wanting to travel and where you were at? What changed, or maybe even nothing except a choice, and then what your experience was in those first times of stepping into that new space within yourself. Because I remember in the past episodes you have chatted about when you traveled the country and you just had wonderful experiences out near 2012.
Yeah, before that, I actually did a solo adventure to Colorado, and that was like my first like traveling experience. But before that, I had been working these 2 jobs for like a year, and basically doing the same thing, and like just I was enjoying life, to be honest with you, because I had friends, I had money to do things, and I was comfortable. But then I began feeling the sense of something was missing in my life. And then one day I had a huge panic attack because I was starting to feel like I wasn't going anywhere or doing anything with my life because I was doing the same thing over and over, and I wasn't seeing any progress in myself or my dreams. So then I had this huge panic attack, which really like got my attention on like, I need to do something with my life. And one thing that came up was like traveling, like going to the mountains in Colorado, because I realized that in my heart I am an adventurer. I love exploring, and so it kind of like stirred that back up in me, because when I was young, I was all about like, oh, I'm going to travel all these places and I'm going to do all these cool things. But then I got older and got comfortable with my friends and my job. But then that panic attack really, I think it was like my soul basically like shaking me, being like, you need to like travel, you need to follow your dreams and your heart. So then I was prepping for a few months, like planning this trip. I didn't really plan it per se, like where I was going to go. I planned it more like I'm going to share my adventure with everybody who is going through similar things. But I was really nervous because I quit both of my jobs. I was scared because I didn't know what was going to happen. My car was a like 1990 Mazda hatchback, which was not in the best condition. It was a little shaky and rusty. So I had all these unknowns. I was a little scared, but my heart was literally like pushing me. My soul was pushing me. So I had no choice. And I was very, very uncomfortable, especially when my car would break down. And then I was like, oh shit, I'm like stuck. And I'm like, only 100 miles away, and I'm trying to go like 1,000 miles away. But
wow, it broke down like somewhat nearby your own hometown and not even close to the destination.
Right, like it wasn't even 100 miles that I got before it broke down. I think it was like Columbus, Indiana, or something. But I was like super nervous because I was like, well, what am I gonna do? And I was like, I was scared, and it was like one of the low points in that trip. But then again, my soul and my heart was like, you're gonna finish this no matter what. If you have to hitchhike, whatever, you're gonna do it. So I just found a way to like get my car running again, and actually made it all the way to Colorado, where I had to scrap it because it actually did break down. But at least it made it to Colorado.
It made it.
It made it barely. There's a point where it was shaking so bad on the highway. I was scared for my life. And it was late at night too, and cars were beeping at me, and I was like, ah.
Oh my gosh.
But I actually made it to the city, and it was like so shaky. I made it to this little city. It was like an hour away from Denver, and I tried to like take it to a shop to see what was wrong with it. And they said it was like the suspension or like something with the wheel was really messed up, and it was going to be at least $400 to like $600 to fix it. And in my head, I was like, I can't do that. So I was taking all my stuff out of my car to basically just throw it away, because I knew I was going to have to scrap my car and I wasn't going to be able to take all this stuff. But the owner of the shop, he like saw me doing that and he let me store all my stuff in his shed or garage or something like that.
Wow.
And actually went back like 2 years later and got it all back.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was an hour away from Denver. So I gave him my stuff in good faith. And he said, as long as you don't leave it here for 10 years, you can come get it. I was like, okay. So I let him take it. And then I took my car and I found a back way to Denver. And instead of being an hour, because I had to drive like 25 miles an hour, otherwise my wheel would start shaking really bad. And it took me like 4 hours to go an hour distance.
And I only keep laughing because I actually know the pain of driving a scary car. And it's just like every noise, every bump, and every minute is like, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it, but I was going like so slow. And there's actually a crazy time in that 4-hour stretch. At least half of the trip, there were so many lights. It looked like planes, but there were so many of them. There was at least 100 of them all at the same time, like literally surrounding my car. And I was like, what is going on here?
Like up in the sky?
Yeah. Up in the sky, like some were higher, some were lower, but then they all like were surrounding me. They weren't that close, but close enough for me to see all of them.
Wow.
And we were near the airport, but I was like, this is kind of weird because there's like 100 planes all at the same time, like around me. But I was seeing major UFOs at that time. But
Yeah, wow.
Huh?
I'm just agreeing with you. I said that's nuts because I remember that one video that you shared with me when you did the news report, and maybe we'll share that in a podcast sometime. But was that way previous to that time? I can't remember.
That was around the time I was planning my adventure.
They're like, this guy's coming. We're gonna watch him here.
Yeah. I was having major UFO experiences at that time. The reason that I got on the news was because I videotaped these lights in the sky and immediately got like 13,000 views. And so the news channel saw it and did an interview with me. In that interview, like they were asking like, why do you think these UFOs are here? And I was like, well, maybe Lake Michigan has an underground base for them. And I kind of still feel like that might be true.
Deep underground military base.
Yeah. But in my car, I actually made it to Denver after 4 hours, and I scrapped my car for like $200, and bought a movie ticket and went to the movies because I was right next to the movie theater.
Which movie?
The Green Lantern.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
gotta
then
wind down somehow after all that.
definitely, and you know, seeing a movie was just super relaxing for me, and I could take a minute to breathe, and so I came out of the movies, and then I started hitchhiking for the rest of the way, and it was scary. It was really scary, but like that trip changed my life. Like it opened my mind and my heart in more ways than I could have ever imagined.
So when you got out of the movies, was it nighttime?
It was getting close to nighttime, I think. And I can't remember where I slept. I must have slept like underneath of a overpass or something like that because it was more shady, and it was summertime, so it was pretty warm. And then like I hitchhiked for a while, walked a long distance, and made it to the top of a mountain.
You up?
Yeah, I'll say 3 or 4 different people picked me up, and one guy actually picked me up. He dropped me off in Nederland, Colorado, next to Boulder, and he told me about this lake that I should go to, and I was like, sweet. And then he left, and I didn't see him for a long while after that, but eventually, like, I tried to make it to that lake he was talking about, and I was just like, I was just walking, and as I like passed the road that I was supposed to go down because I missed it, literally like 5 seconds after I walked past the road I was supposed to go down, that same guy who showed me the lake just all like suddenly like appeared out of nowhere with his car, picked me up, and took me to the lake himself.
That's awesome.
Yeah, otherwise I would have been like, I would have been lost. But like immediately when I needed him, he showed up, and that's one of the magical things that happens when you're out adventuring, is that when you need something, it appears in such a magical way to you.
And that spontaneity really reminds me of a book that I believe you've read it because you recommended it to me. I've read it as well a little while ago. It's called The Celestine Prophecy, or Prophecies. I think it's Prophecy. And this book does so many things, and it also just goes down these different synchronistic events that, you know, a life like this, it requires faith. You can't think about everything and then go through that way. Like we're gonna get stopped out. The mind and the way that we perceive is limited to such a degree where it can only do certain things. It can't do everything. And what a powerful thing. So you and him got to the lake, and what time period was this after you had left your original house?
It took me maybe a week and a half, maybe, to get to that point after I was like, I'm going on this adventure. So I started, I drove, and it took me a long time to get to Colorado, mostly because my car was pretty fucked up. And I had to stop a lot to try and get it fixed, and I actually took it to like 4 different body shops throughout the trip. And it was just like one thing after another.
Yeah.
But it was an old car, old rusty hatchback Mazda that was super loud. Like the muffler, I don't even know if there was a muffler, and it was just so loud.
So now you're in the general area, and you found this nice place. So what do you do next?
Well, so when he took me to the lake was on top of a mountain, and I had been hitchhiking for at least 2 days, and I was pretty exhausted by the time we got to the bottom of the mountain that we were going to climb. And then we climbed, and it was uphill for like 3 hours. It was like a 3-hour uphill hike the whole time. And by the time I got there, I was dead, and I just like laid down and like fell asleep for a while after I like set up my little, it was a very little tent. It was like you couldn't stand up in it. It was just like laid down. So it was like a hiking bag. So it was like really light and small. I set that up, and I laid in it, and I passed out. Had a dream about a bear like getting close to me, and I woke up thinking there was a bear around, but there wasn't. And it was kind of like getting dark at that time, so the guy built a fire, and we just talked about life for a while, and he talked about like living or just like being able to hike in the mountains and like fishing, and just basically trying to teach me basic survival skills.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was crazy because we did that, and then went back to sleep, and I woke up, and he was there, like starting another fire in the morning. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, I'm gonna go for a hike, and he was like, okay. So I hiked up another mountain, and it only took about 25 minutes to hike up that one, and I got to the top, and I was like super happy, and I felt like, well, I made it, because I was trying to tell everybody I'm gonna go to the mountains, and people were like, well, how are you gonna get there? Like, what are you gonna do? And I was like, just super excited because I was like, I made it. Like, even if people doubted me, like I did what I set out to do. I made it to the Colorado mountains. I'm up top, and I screamed really loud, and I was just super excited. And I felt like, well, okay, now since I made it, I'm gonna go back home because I like really miss home, and I just feel like my heart's being guided to go back. So I climbed back down to tell the guy I was probably gonna leave the next day, but he was gone. His tent was gone. Everything that he had was gone. And I was like, I hope he didn't take any of my stuff. And I looked, and he didn't, thankfully. So I just kind of basically hung out that day by myself. And the next day, I walked down the mountain. And as I was getting closer to the bottom, this like couple stopped me and asked if I was the guy from Michigan. And I was like, how do you know that? And they're like, there's a note for you at the bottom of the mountain. I was like, huh. So I went and I looked, and there was a note that was taped to one of the signs from the guy who helped me. And he was like, hey, sorry for ditching you so quickly. I got a call from my team, and by the time you read this, I'm going to be halfway around the world. And I was like,
Wow.
what? Like, who is this guy? Like, what does he do? What team is he on? And
The team.
And the Angel team. And that's the last I ever saw him or heard of him, heard from him.
Wow. What was his name?
Huh. I don't even remember, to be honest.
Nice.
Must have been something like Mike or...
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool experience.
So here you are. You just reached your goal, and you also got a clue to the next steps. So now what's your plan from the bottom of the mountain?
After I got to the bottom, I started walking back, and I was trying to make it back to Denver so I could get a train ticket. And somebody picked me up and drove me through some of the mountains. I think they even dropped me off. They dropped me off in Boulder, and I was going to get a bus pass. So I used some of my money to take the bus to the airport. And at the airport, I got on the Wi-Fi, and I was able to get a train ticket back to Michigan. But at the airport, like, I saw all these crazy paintings, and there were these huge tunnels, like tunnels big enough to have at least a few semis driving through them. And they said that it was for like a new water system. But if you look into the Colorado Denver airport, there's some really crazy shit that is involved with that airport. The paintings, and I felt like there's something going on. But I slept that night at the airport, and just like one of the doors. I was kind of used to sleeping in public places with people walking around by then, so I just fell asleep, and then when I woke up, I think I got a bus back somewhere to wherever the train station was, and then I took the train back to Michigan, and it was actually a great train trip. Like, that trip home was like one of the best like trips I've ever had, because it was like I felt so good that I made it. I got to the mountains, like I did all this stuff, and now I was going back home where like I was going back to where I was comfortable, where I had a bed, where I knew I had food and friends. And that was a good feeling, but just like seeing all the beautiful mountains go by on the train, like there's an observation lounge, like there was actually a part of the train that was a restaurant that you could go and sit down. And the way they do that is they'll sit you down in an open seat rather than an open like booth. So if there's like 3 people sitting down at a table and you're only one person, they'll sit you down with those 3 people. So we got to I got to meet like a few people while I was eating, and it was a really awesome adventure back home.
Wow. So all in all, how long did that trip take? A couple of weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks?
Yeah, I would say maybe at 2.5 to 3 weeks. I don't think it was quite a month, but it was close.
Wow. So with that money from your car, you were able to afford the ticket back. You probably spent or gave away things here and there, and then some food, and that was just good for you.
Yeah, I think the train ticket was about the same exact price that I got for the car.
Oh, wow. Right on.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Like when when you're traveling, and something happens, like it happens for a reason, and something is gonna work out. Like everything in the end will work out. And when you just put yourself out there and you follow where your heart is guiding you, or if you have like this urge, like I felt like it was like the mountains were literally calling me, and I felt this pull, like I felt a pull towards the mountains. Like there was no way I could deny it. So I followed it, and it changed my life. And I think it's part of why like we're here now, like why we're here talking.
Yeah, there's just that feeling or that voice, or you could even say a magnetism towards certain things that we feel at certain times of our life. And you know, I have a question too. So when you got back, you're obviously a brand new version of you. You're obviously a brand new person. And how did you view the things that you came back to? Your family, your friends, things relating to any type of job or money or whatever. Where was your mind at when you got back?
Well, when I got back, I was basically bedridden for about 2 weeks because I was just super sick. While I was in the mountains, I was super thirsty, and like you're basically in survival mode. So what I would do is I went up to where there was still snow, because it was so high up. There was still snow, and I would just like pack the snow into my water cup, and then I would let it melt, and then I would drink that. But I got like super sick when I got back home, and it lasted like 2 weeks. I was just like in bed the whole 2 weeks. I felt like I was like basically in a slimy cocoon. And it was nasty, but afterwards I was like a brand new person, and I began to see normal things that people do every day as like a blessing. So being like a person who's hitchhiking and super hungry and like not knowing when they're gonna have like water or food, I began like being extremely grateful for just having like a little bit of food, or like being able to go get water whenever I wanted, or like have a bathroom. Simple everyday things that I think most of us take for granted were like huge blessings to me. Like they were like heaven basically to me because of what I went through.
Truly. And you know, we can look at all this as a metaphor of the hero's journey, and we also see this in a caterpillar and a butterfly. First I just want to say thank you for sharing all that. What a rich tale. And I'm sure the viewers and everyone else is just as captivated as me, if not more. I mean, I'm like blown away every time I hear that. I'm like, tell me again. But like you coming home and being bedridden, what if that's kind of like being in a cocoon?
Mm-hmm.
What if that's kind of like, oh, and for those of you who don't know, when the caterpillar enters the cocoon, it actually turns to this mush or goo, including its brain. So the brain is completely discombobulated, and it's just this amorphous stuff. And the caterpillar actually ceases to exist. And the butterfly also doesn't exist yet. So there's this in-between time where it's like a big question mark. But because of what is inside, like the essence inside and the data in the DNA, and how the DNA is actually conscious. It's not just like something. It's like you could be like, It's still the person. And when you rose out of bed in those last days after feeling sick, and now you're all of a sudden like starting to get some energy here, a little bit of motivation, momentum, etc. That's the butterfly. And and this stuff happens multiple times through our life, I feel. And it truly is like the hero's journey, because going out there, you're slaying your dragons over and over. You're fighting your demons over and over, and not indicating that it was a struggle for you, even though there was struggle there. Maybe you feel that you even were somewhat guided and protected by the mountains, so much so that at any time you were confused or scared, you could potentially tap into that inner station on the inside to find that guidance. And I just think that's really incredible. And one last point here, so true about the gratitude for the simple things in life. With our home, that we have air conditioning and 15 grocery stores in a 2.5 minute drive, and all of our friends at the type of our fingers right there, or online. I can get anything. I can find any item or see any person or any part of someone, and all of this. And it's just like technology. A lot of people have a lot of opinions about technology, but technology is almost the opposite of nature. Because nature, it's just there being nature. It's not necessarily interacting with us. It's more of us going into nature and becoming nature. And then through there, we're delivered the highest technology. But with the human technology that we have, it's almost like we're using something. It's not so much a harmonious thing, because there isn't really a harmony between an organic and an inorganic. The inorganic is kind of just there playing out its function. There's not necessarily a relationship or like a synergizing communication. And I find it so interesting that with technology and all the advancements that we have as humans, it's so easy to take it for granted, because we don't have that other pole, that other organic thing to bounce off of and communicate with. Because like if you're in nature and you're using nature in the wrong way, you're gonna know like fast. If you're in nature and you're abusing it or yourself, or you're being disrespectful or just silly and ignorant, you're gonna know fast. But with technology, it's so easy to be ignorant for so long with having no idea, and all of a sudden your brain is wired to only be able to focus for 3 seconds before you flip to the next picture. And you find that out 15 years later. In nature, you find that out within 15 seconds, usually. And so I just like to take a public service announcement to let's all have a theme through this moment where whoever and wherever, whenever we're viewing this audio, to take a moment and just use that time to notice the abundance and the blessings that we have in our day-to-day life that provides this ultimate comfort that the humans in the past didn't even have the opportunity to experience. And we truly do live in heaven. And sure, with saying that there's heaven, there's also a dual pole to that for sure. But what I'm talking about is something pulled back outside of those poles. And when we can really tune into ourselves and feel what's calling for us, as you did through this journey, we can detach ourselves from all of these abundance that we take for granted, and we can hear that inner voice and also at the same time be fueled by our abundances rather than be shackled or attached to them. Because there's definitely been times in my life where when, something so silly as like the air conditioner stops working or something, it's like, oh, all my life sucks now or something. And it's just like, how silly and immature, like it's not a bad thing. I'm not being like, oh, you're a little child and derogatory words. It's just like us humans, we're pretty immature in the sense of how much we let abundance slide by. And yeah, just feeling a lot of gratitude,
Yeah, that's why it's important to like write things down that you're grateful for, because that's one thing when you get into a routine and you just do the same thing over and over, like you go to work, you come back, like you have dinner, whatever. That's stuff that we begin not to notice that we're doing anymore because we just do it for so often, and then we begin to lose like how grateful we are to be able to do that. And until like you can go somewhere new and open up your mind and heart, or like have that experience where you don't have the comfort of your home or being able to like have the AC or watch your favorite show or whatever, until you don't know what that's like it's hard to appreciate it. And so I think that's one reason why like going on that adventure was so important for me, is because I got out of that routine and I began to see how really blessed we all are. And especially like in the United States, like we can say all we want about it, but when you really like look at it, we are pretty blessed. And I feel like a lot of us are pretty spoiled because we have so much access to anything we could want.
Yeah. And I don't know about y'all, but when I was growing up, my parents were pretty diligent toward me on, basically the message was be diverse with your time and your attention. And of course, I was spoiled and I didn't listen, but the message still stuck with me to this day. And having all of this abundance and stuff that we may not be so grateful for, it's not wrong. It's just like you said, make time to write things down and be grateful for. And it's so important to manifest things into all forms. And what I mean by that is, sure, we may think in our mind, oh, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. Take that and put it on paper. So now there's two layers of you that's grateful. And then maybe in that day, go talk about that to someone. And now you have 3 layers of yourself that's really grateful. And then maybe before you go to bed, recall your day and think about that again. So now you have even another layer. And the more aspects of ourself we put into these higher vibrations. And what I mean by higher vibrations is it's more harmonious with nature. We can use nature as a guide point. We could look at nature and call it perfect, and kind of use that as our reference point for a way to live almost. And not being too strict on ourselves, but just to go there. And very, very soon, if not even in the very moment, our brain will change. And when our brain changes, first we got to notice this. We changed first, and then our brain changed. And then with the changed brain, it then becomes our ally and helps us continue the change. But before we have changed, the brain is still trying to do the other stuff. And the brain just wants to help. It's just our teammate. And it'll follow what you say. And maybe for a few weeks, months, or years, you told it to do this stuff over here. So it's going to be like, okay, no problem. So if we want to change, use multiple ways to talk with the brain and talk with yourself so it can get the picture And something that we've been doing for years or something could be changed in days if we manifest it in multiple forms: thought, writing, video, talking, action, etc. And we can share all of these beautiful things and just build and grow. And I'm kind of going on a tangent right now, but I really just appreciate this moment right now. I'm talking to a screen right now. There's no video. I'm all alone, and at the same time, I'm so not alone because I'm coming out of all those screens anyone's viewing from. And CeeLo, we're here today. I just appreciate you so much. And what a beautiful life we all get to co-create. And if we don't feel that it's a beautiful life that we can co-create, I ask whoever feels that way to give yourself 5 minutes, sometime today or tonight. Give yourself 5 minutes to sit there with some nice gentle music or some silence and just think about what would be that. What if that were the case, what would it feel like? And then once we have that feeling, before long, we're going to notice it out in the world. Just like if you get a red car, if you buy a red car, all of a sudden you're going to start to see all the red cars. And this is how the brain works. We perceive a world based off of what calculations and things are happening in an unseen space. So feel it first, and you will see it afterwards. So what do these things feel like?
Yeah, I like that a lot. I often, and I appreciate you too, buddy. I often tell people in meditation, like, I ask them, like, well, how does it feel to be able to do that? Because your feelings are basically like a satellite to reality that tell reality this is what you want to bring into your experience. And even if you have to pretend at first, like pretend, and sometimes it takes a while to begin to feel it, but if you keep at it and you keep pretending, like, you will really begin to feel it, and then it will really draw into your reality, and then boom, you're good.
That's so true. It's funny that awesome that you mentioned that, because just yesterday I was diving into some education on YouTube, and one part of what they were chatting about is play. And the audience was like, oh, like, go on a hike or go to the gym or go to a bar or a movie or whatever. And it's like, no, playing. Like when we were kids, and the guy who was speaking, what he had said is his children play all the time. They would use a big beanbag and they would call it Mount Everest. And they would play on Mount Everest for hours. They would climb up it, and one would fall, and, oh no, I'm falling, catch me. And the one would go, and they would have this expedition on Mount Everest as little kids. And I don't know about y'all, but I definitely played a lot as a child. And then, of course, the schooling system and my parents and the conformity and all of that stuff. But that stuff is still in us, and playing is create it within you first, and it will go on the outside. And make time for this. When we're in nature, dance with the trees or sing with the birds or just like act a fool. Society and the ways that we judge ourselves and all of these things, it squelches that spirit within. And even when we're enjoying ourselves, we may not necessarily be playing. When we're out hiking in the woods, we may be lost in our thoughts of how do I fix my life, or how do I make my life better? And those are great questions to ask. But what is even beneath that? What is even before that? And are we connected with our child? And to be even more descriptive, are we connected with our creative ability? Can we see inside what we're creating? And just as an easy reference point, something that I've been working with very briefly is when we're breathing, and let's say we're counting our breath on the inside. And I inhale and 1 and exhale and 2. What does that 1 look like inside my mind? What does it feel like? What kind of voice is saying it? And all of this. And it can be very much augmented. And if we actually have, at any point, if we have about 5 minutes, I'd love to run, maybe even less than 5 minutes. I'd love to run through a very brief and awesome visualization meditation. So you let me know if that is appropriate and when that time would be. I think that would be really great for us all to connect in that way, just to connect into more what it is like in the inside when we're playing and creating there.
Do you have time now to do it?
Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to ask because it was coming through.
Go. Let's do it.
So, okay. So let's all close our eyes and just make ourselves comfy if we're not already. And we'll finish that exhale there so we can connect with our breath. And we'll inhale any way that's comfy. Pause at the top. And it's good. Let it out. Pause at the bottom. Let it come on back in. So as we're breathing and connecting with our breath here, there is a lemon. We just see a lemon in our mind. Yellow lemon. And now, just notice very briefly the distance from you, the size, how detailed it looks. Is there shine on it from a light? What does the background look like, etc.? Now this lemon is in our left hand. How does it feel? Its firmness? The temperature? How does the hand feel? And now we have a knife in our right hand. We place this lemon down and we cut the lemon in half. How does the knife feel moving through the lemon? Perhaps we start to get some aroma from it. Noticing that. Now with half of the lemon in our left hand, we see it. Maybe there's some shine on there. Noticing the rind. Noticing the individual sections of it. And the color is getting more vivid. And the aroma is becoming more vivid as well. Now, just because you have a physical nose doesn't mean you can't smell in different ways as well. So now we've noticed how something so simple as like, oh, lemon, and someone could just see it in there. There's so much more detail that can be created. There's so much more of a journey that can go there and really captivate our senses outside of the 5 senses. And this simple exercise of noticing this lemon in these different ways, and you could do it with anything. You could do it with food, items, relationships, emotions, trauma, triggers, dreams. You pick. We notice how there are layers to these things, and there are also layers to our own self. And the more we add in this depth of play and creation, because I know you guys felt that lemon. I know you guys smelled it, and you saw it, and you saw deeper than just like lemon. And this is so powerful, and it kind of makes me a little emotional because of how much healing can be brought from this. That let us bring back play in our day and it will clear so much debris from that corridor of our connection with this creation inside, with higher forms and higher thoughts and things like that. And let us exercise patience with our own self and truly enjoy what we're doing rather than just doing it. Like when we're eating later on, let us take one bite and just really experience it through the senses. How is it smelling? How does it feel on our teeth, on our tongue? How does our jaw feel as we go? How is our body feeling as we're chewing? Are we reading and watching TV and talking and chewing, sitting and standing all at the same time? What's going on? So all I offer is go through our day now with a little more lucidity and attention to detail, awareness and presence, and patience. And maybe when we open our eyes, that lemon will be right there for us.
So if anybody still has their eyes closed, are they able to open them now?
Let's take one more breath together to lock all this in. So we'll finish that breath. Inhaling with our belly, letting the air travel all the way down. Noticing at the end how our chest opens up just a bit more as well. Pausing at the top. Enjoying what we just received. Letting it go. Letting it all go. Pausing at the bottom because we do not need to have anything to be right where we are at. And then on our own time, letting it come back in naturally. We don't even have to seek anything. The breath just comes back in as we open our eyes, noticing what we're seeing, where we are at. Thank you.
I like that a lot. I didn't want to say anybody who's like thinking maybe their imagination muscle is really weak or it's because they're older, now they can't do that. One good tip for visualization that I've learned is by taking an item that you have around you. Like I have a tattoo on my wrist or I have a ring on my finger that I can just like look at for a few seconds, kind of like take in all the detail of it, close my eyes, recreate that ring or that tattoo for a few seconds. And then do that like 3 times, just like recreating something in your mind. It really is an exercise to strengthen your imagination muscle. And you know, when we were kids, we did like to play a lot. We did have huge imaginations. And as we get older, society kind of waters that down. So being able to use this exercise, it helps to strengthen that back up again.
Beautiful, beautiful wholeness. In there, we just use some high-ass level technology because you want to know what? No matter who, what, when, where, how we are, we can go into that inside creative space and we can create anything that we can see.
I love it. Well, this is a really great episode. I'm awesome. I thought it was so great and it's made me feel so good.
Thank you. Yeah, this was... What a treat. I really appreciate you sharing your story, your journey. And honestly, I think I've heard that maybe 15 to 20 times. Each time it's like I'm hearing it for the new thing. And I just appreciate you and all of our viewers. Project Bring Me to Life campaign worldwide, global, coming to a continent near you.
Well, I appreciate you holding space for that story and offering all your insight. I know a lot of people who really appreciate it. So it's been good, and I've enjoyed being able to have these discussions with you for the podcast.
I really enjoyed myself as well. It was a pleasure to share and co-create this. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for you.
Awesome. Wholeness. Well, thank you all for listening. Please share it or comment or whatever. Just grateful that you are able to tune in and you made it all the way here. So congratulations. Give yourself a pat on the back. Yeah, and then just have a great day today. We're gonna sign off now. So thank you all. Have a great day and namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thanks for shining on with us.